Hey guys, welcome to another edition of Daniel and Gian Talk, and today I'm going to be talking about the 2018 film Andhadhun, directed by Mr. Sriram Raghavan. Apologies for mispronouncing the name, but let's get into it. Obviously, that's why you clicked on this thumbnail. So, overall, I enjoyed this roller coaster ride of a movie. I mean, there were ups, downs all over. It was like it was like being in the circus and you're that guy who's walking on the tightrope. I mean, at any point he could have fallen down, and if the guy would have fallen, if the movie would have fallen down, it would have been in shambles. The movie would have been, because you're dealing with stakes that are so high, so over the top, so intense that if one gets mishandled, you're going to roll your eyes. And there were certain moments where I did roll my eyes at this movie, but because of the directing of Raghavan, the movie righted itself. At no point, I mean, I wrote in my notes, like, the reveal that he wasn't blind. Does this work? And by the end, I said yes. You know, does it work that Tabu kills the doctor at the end? Or does she? That's why I said yes, because that's, again, these little moments of mishandling where I'm like, oh no, but the ship righted itself, which is very important for a movie like this. Speaking of Tabu, I mean, the performances were all around great. Tabu, this is the first time I've been exposed to her, I believe. She was great as this melodramatic, aging film star who wants to come back, so hats off to you. Ayushman Khurrana, probably mispronouncing your name. He's the lead as Akash, very well. And of course, Radhika Apte, my favorite Indian actress working right now. I mean, she's had a phenomenal 2018. Her future is just endless. I mean, she's did so much stuff this year, and so her little role was also equally as powerful to the rest, and so hats off to all of that. But let's start with the things I liked, because there's definitely things I did not like, but we'll get to that towards the end. First things first, I enjoyed that opening scene with the bunny. It was nice, it was cute, it was intense, because you don't want the little bunny to die, the CGI rabbit, you don't want him to die, but, you know, such is life sometimes. The opening bit with the piano, where you actually get Akash's playing ability as well as the cat coming in, that was very, very well done. I really enjoyed that. Hats off to that, because anyone who's worked with animals before on movie sets, they know that working with animals is pretty challenging, especially cats, because cats have minds of their own. They don't really give a shit about you, even if they're really well trained. If they don't want to do anything, they're not going to do anything. They're not like dogs, where a dog, I feel like you can really get a dog to do what you want. Anyway, so hats off to that. Cat also had a very good performance throughout the movie, because it wasn't a CGI cat like the rabbit was. First off, I really enjoyed that first scene with the moving of the body, moving of the old Bollywood star. I mean, I enjoyed how they set him up. They intercut his old Bollywood movies. They were shot in film, and he's singing and everything, like these olden times, these golden years of this aging star's life. And I enjoyed the scene in which they're moving his body, they're moving his dead body, because you get to see the scene through Akash's POV. As he's playing, obviously we know at that point he's not blind, so we know he can see all of this stuff, but he has to pretend to be blind. What was really great about that is the way it was shot, and the music he was playing, juxtaposed to one another, playing off of one another. It reminded me of an old silent film, because it was one shot. There was no close-up of the inspector, close-up of Tabu. There was none of this stuff. Occasionally you'd get a reaction shot of him just to cut up the scene, but for the most part it was played on one wide shot, and you would see Tabu and the inspector overacting. They're pantomiming, you know, they're doing this, and normally in most scenes you'd be like, this is stupid, their acting's terrible, but because they can't talk, because he's blind, not deaf, it causes them to like, no, we got to put him in the suitcase, no, we got to do this, whatever. And when you hear the music, like the music that's playing, the piano music, it's just like a silent movie, and I really, really enjoyed that. It was very interesting. I dug it, 100% dug it. Staying with the music, I enjoyed the way the music kind of stayed with the tone of the film as the film got darker and more serious. When Akash is playing at Franco's, the music sets that tone. It's a little more sinister, it's a little more dark, but I really did enjoy that his playing complemented the journey of the movie. There was two major plot twists in my opinion. Him revealing that he's not blind, and then the second one was the killing of the doctor at the end. Now, initially, I did not enjoy those, because I was like, oh no, why couldn't he just be blind? It's so interesting for him to be blind. You know, I worried that Raghavan was not going to be able to handle that because of the circumstances of the character in the world, and I was just so interested in him being blind. And then by the end, not a complaint, strike that one off. That was a positive. I enjoyed the way the story ended up turning out. The second one for me, the major one, was when the doctor dies at the end, when Tabu kills the doctor at the end. And by that point, I want Akash to get his vision back. I don't give a fuck about if Tabu lives or not, because she's done everything. She's done everything. She's caused all of this, and we don't know whether or not her husband killed himself. It's left open-ended for a reason. I appreciate that because it leaves this debate open, so hats off to that. But then we get the end, the very end, where we don't know if Akash is actually blind or not. I personally do not think he is, which is why he hit the can at the very end, which means which means Tabu died and he got his eyes from her. So if that's the ending that I truly believe, also not a negative, even though, you know, at first it rubbed me the wrong way. Obviously, it's up to the viewer. You know, what do you guys think out there? Do you guys think that he was blind or not at the end? I personally feel like, based on everything, because of my film evidence is on one scene where he goes to the cops right when he has the murder. He knows he wants to spill the beans on the murder, and he wants to admit, like, no, he murdered him, and this is it, this is that. And the movie cuts to that scene as a joke, and I actually kind of wish, I would love to see that version of the movie where he does say, no, they did it. It wasn't blah, blah, blah. I'm not blind. Look, I'm not blind, you idiots. Like what he says. I would love to see that movie too, because that was an interesting plot. Because I thought that was going to actually happen, and then it smash cuts to him back, and he signs the affidavit, where his statement. And because Raghavan added that scene in there, it allowed the audience to know that Akash is capable of lying, capable of having a different mental state. And so at the very end, when he's telling this whole story to Radhika down in the cafe 2 years later, we're left to believe that, you know what? He could be telling the whole truth. But because of the one scene before that, it's that little plant that pays off that leaves me to believe that none of that happened. I think that when the story cuts 2 years later, that's what was really going on. He was driving with the doctor, and she got killed, which I think she deserved. I'm glad that in my opinion, that's what she needed, because she needed to have a consequence for every single thing: killing the neighbor, hiding the husband's body, you know, making Akash blind. I mean, all these things need consequences, and if she didn't have any, if she was the victor, she walked away, I'm not happy. So because of the ending the way it was, I left the film satisfied. Because had she just walked away, I would have hated this movie, genuinely, because I just, yeah, for me, you can't end a movie like that. Not when she's such a despicable character. There was nothing likable about her, nothing, not at all. And so because of that, you know, I'm glad, you know, those are two negatives that turned into positives. But let's talk about that 2-year time jump. I'm not a fan of big 2-year time jumps, but I get it for this one because of the way it was set up. But it felt so off and weird. Let me know in the comments how you guys felt about that. Things I did not enjoy. Initially, I enjoyed the sound design, because I'm like, oh, he's blind, so that means his hearing's gonna be great. And at the very beginning, you hear a lot of birds, and it felt very active, and I was like, oh yes, this is great. I'm really glad that they're making you feel like what it would feel like to be blind, maybe. But then when the piano bit started coming in, when he's at Franco's, and that's when I really didn't enjoy it. And the reason why is, up until this point, you're so engulfed into the reality of the story. I mean, like I said, you hear the birds, and everything's just playing out real. But then the piano comes in, and it's clearly him not playing it in the live environment. And I'm not saying the actor needs to be able to play the piano. What I'm saying is, there's a certain sound. You can tell as an audio guy, at least for me, when something is just an audio track being placed into the timeline of the whole edit, versus something that could still be recorded but is mixed to sound like it's coming from the room in which he's playing the piano. I would have much preferred that, because it would have enabled the reality of the moment to just to go that much further. I would have believed that he's actually playing the piano, as opposed to, in my opinion, lazy editing of let's just throw this piano in there. For me, Personally, it took me out every time because I felt like I was watching a music video as opposed to just watching this guy play the piano. And I know for a lot of people out there, that probably will just go right over your heads, and that's completely acceptable. Obviously, I'm a filmmaker, so I'm going to notice things more than most people would. In certain moments, it did work where you did have that piano, as I mentioned earlier with that silent film bit. It needed to be almost like a score because that was the design. But there's certain things at Franco's where it was just like, I don't know. It would have just, because the reason what took me out of it is you would have a scene in which he's playing the piano, and then when he's finished, you know, dun-dun or whatever, the sound would mix back into the room. So it was like, for me, it was like, wait, why didn't you just mix it all this way in the first place? You know, have some, because you don't hear any drinks clinking, glasses clinking, people eating, things like that, crowd walla. So for me as a sound designer, that's kind of distracting. I'm not going to lie. Wasn't the biggest fan of that personally. There was a moment with at Franco's when they were handing out blindfolds because Akash is such a great pianist that they wanted to have a blind night. That was kind of absurd. That was kind of dumb. I mean, obviously if Akash is blind, he wouldn't know that, but I feel like that'd be really offensive. I don't know, that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It's a minor gripe, but for me it was just like, I don't, why? That didn't seem right. I enjoyed the band of characters, like those band of thieves, the one who's selling, the lady who's selling the lottery ticket, and then they end up trying to like get the guy's organs, which was a weird twist too. I mean, a lot of these things kind of came out of nowhere, but for whatever reason they worked. I mean, this movie reminded me of Drishyam, the Malayalam film. I haven't seen the Hindi remake, but the reason why I say that is this: once the story gets going, the stakes just keep getting elevated and elevated and elevated to an absurd degree. I don't care what anybody says, but all of the stakes here were all absurd. I mean, once they get to a certain point, once she throws a lady off the fucking balcony, the movie's just like, all right, motherfuckers, strap in. This is where the roller coaster starts. Because up until that point, it was kind of based in reality. You have your little love story, with Radhika. But then once that happens, it's like, and so, you know, and as I mentioned earlier, that tightrope act, you know, the bouncing act, there was definitely moments where the guy was falling, but the movie never fell. And I gotta hats off again. But I compare it to Drishyam because, you know, there's the boyfriend bit. There's all these elements which are just so unbelievable and just so ridiculous, and they're just so absurd. But the intense setup, the intense drama, the admiration for the characters involved, you kind of go with the ride. You kind of do. I can't deny. And I feel like this film definitely appeals to a specific type of audience, but it's so general that everyone can enjoy it, and I enjoyed that. You know, was it the best film of 2018? I don't know. That's left to be said. But up until this point, I had a pretty good time at the theater watching it. It was definitely better than a lot of the other bullshit that I've seen this year. Race 3, I'm gonna continue to shit on you because you deserve it. But that's the one I'm thinking about in particular. I'd much rather see movies made like this than movies made like that. 10 times out of 10, fucking every single time, because at least this one cares about the story. At least this one cares about the fucking characters. At least this one cares about setups and payoffs. At least this one wants to make somewhat logical sense here. I mean, when you're dealing with fucking Salman Khan fucking films like Race 3, logic goes out the door. It's not even out the door. It's not even in this fucking universe. It's in another fucking parallel universe where fucking logic is irrelevant. Logic doesn't exist. That's where Race 3 belongs. That's where fucking films like that, such dumb, fucking stupid movies that just make no fucking sense, that just make when an audience member goes to watch Race 3, and I know from first-hand experience, your fucking intelligence level just drops. Like, you leave like a jumbie, ooh, jumbie. I say that because of the, I believe it's Go Go Gone, where they say jumbie. I haven't said that in a while, but for those who've been watching for a while, you know why I'm saying jumbie. But anyway, I'm gonna wrap it up with that. Let me know in the comments what you guys felt about it. Overall, if I was to throw a rating on it, I'd say it was about a 7 to 8. When I left the theater, it was like a 7. Right now, as I've been talking about it, it's like a solid 8. So I'm just going to say an 8 out of 10. Definitely recommend it. Definitely a good film. But anyway, guys, that'll do it for me. Let me know in the comments whether or not you liked or disagreed with what I had to say. Peace.